and to work together to create better solutions for all the people in our community.
Hello, my name is Michelle Short. Stu DeHaan and myself are co-chapter heads of the Arizona chapter to the Satanic Temple. Our chapter was given birth in February of 2016 in the aftermath of our first and biggest challenge, when we requested to perform our invocation in front of the Phoenix City Council on behalf of the Satanic Temple. As Satanists that worship through activism, the mission of the Satanic Temple is to encourage benevolence and empathy among all people, reject tyrannical authority, advocate practical common sense and justice, and be directed by the human conscience to undertake noble pursuits guided by the individual will. Civic-minded, the Satanic Temple has been involved in a number of good works, including fighting for women's body autonomy, religious plurality in public forums, working on behalf of children in public school who have been subjected to proselytizing and corporal punishment, and much, much more. As an organized religion, we feel it is our function to actively provide outreach, to lead by example, and to participate in public affairs, wheresoever the issues might benefit from rational satanic insights. As Satanists, we should all be guided by our consciences to undertake noble pursuits guided by our individual wills. We believe that this is a hope for all mankind and the aspiration for all humanity. For more information, please visit our websites, thesatanictemple.com and thesatanictemplearizona.com.
And we're back, folks. Thanks for staying with us through the PSAs there. We appreciate you listening in and, not making too much fun of us, although that can be fun too. So we are joined now by Dr. Dorian Townsend. Dr. Townsend is the Executive Director of the Community Alliance Against Family Abuse here in Apache Junction. Welcome to the show. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day today to sit and chat with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the chance to talk about CAFA and also to kind of spread the word about what services are available to victims of domestic violence and sexual violence in our community.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Okay, unless you're around in that industry or not industry, that's kind of a bad word to use, but in that I don't want to make it sound like it's a profitable industry to be in, family abuse and stuff like that. But what exactly? I mean, what is the organization about? How did it get started? Let's start from there and let kind of give information to everybody so they can understand it.
Okay, so Community Alliance Against Family Abuse actually started back in 1998. There were staff at the time at Central Arizona College who noticed that some of the students who had fled abusive relationships recently were actually living out of their cars because there weren't any local resources for them and they didn't really have any good housing options. And so CAFA was initially formed very much as a grassroots effort. Started off very small. The first 2 years there actually weren't any paid staff, and it quickly grew from there. And now we're a fairly comprehensive services agency. We like to say we're the little agency that could. We're not huge. We're a nonprofit with a budget under $1 million, which is considered small for nonprofits, but we managed to do a lot with a little in our community. We serve victims of all types of domestic violence and sexual violence, and within sexual violence, we also include systematized types of sexual violence, such as sex trafficking. And in those services, we serve survivors of both throughout East Maricopa County and all of Pinal County. So we have quite the broad service area. Within that service area, we provide, first off, crisis shelter, which is kind of what we're best known for. And our crisis shelter is relatively small, but it's specialized. So it's a 16-bed shelter located within our community at an undisclosed location. And that shelter is able to provide a safe, secure, and confidential place for those who are fleeing domestic violence and don't have another safe place to go to. One thing that's unique about our shelter is we are a truly low-barrier shelter. We actually only have 4 rules within our shelter, and those are no violence on site, no violent visitors on site, no weapons on site, and then the 4th rule is no substance use on site. However, we do recognize that often substance use is comorbid with domestic violence. So if someone goes off-site, uses, and comes on-site high, as long as they're not violent, we work with them because we want to work with everyone through what they're dealing with. And within the shelter, we have a 1-to-4 ratio. So for every 4 people in the shelter, we have one staff person who's able to provide very in-depth case management. And due to that model, 46% of the participants that we serve in shelter weren't successful at other shelters. They're actually referred to us from other shelters, and they come to us because, some of the more stringent rules cause them to be kicked out of those shelters. And so we work with them. We work with everything they're experiencing. A lot of our participants in shelter are dealing with substance use or dealing with past criminal histories. A very high percentage of them have SMI diagnoses, which stands for severe mental illness. And so we're able to, so in the shelter, it's really kind of the worst of the worst cases. However, outside of that, our community services are the largest part of what we do. We serve about 700 people every year through our community-based services, and we're able to offer services that kind of cover a full spectrum of the needs of victims of domestic and sexual violence in our community. So we offer general advocacy, working with people who are affected by domestic and sexual abuse and help them identify their needs, help them work through what they've experienced, and help them kind of rebuild their lives. We also offer legal advocacy services, so we're able to help people with different legal concerns, safety planning, court accompaniment. They're not attorneys, so they can't give legal advice. However, they are able to help people kind of navigate the legal system. We have support groups for survivors of both sexual violence and domestic violence. Empowerment sessions, which are supportive sessions with the trained counselor. Now, we're not a counseling facility, but our empowerment guide is able to help people with individualized support, affirmation, validation, information, and education. Then we also have the crisis line. So if anyone is experiencing domestic violence, they can call our crisis line at any time at 480-982-0196. And then we also have some specialized programs that are relatively new. First off, we have a partnership with the Arizona National Guard to serve victims of military sexual assault. So we've been working quite closely with them and along with their sexual assault response core program, and provide external advocacy and support after either a current service member or one of their family members has experienced sexual assault. We also are a PREA advocacy agency, which PREA stands for Prison Rape Elimination Act. So we work with victims of prison rape in the Florence and Iman prison complexes because no matter what someone has done, rape is not part of the punishment. So we do work with them as an external agency. And then we also operate as a trafficking victims assistance program agency. So we're able to support foreign victims of sex trafficking who are navigating the T visa process. And so those are kind of our direct services. We also do outreach and education. So, this is kind of like part of our outreach here is just getting the word out, helping people understand what's available and also what is entailed by domestic violence. And we're always happy to come and do, either a domestic violence 101 or a sexual violence 101 training, or even a specialized training with any agency or with any service group. One example of a recent specialized training, I actually did a training with A.T. Stills University on domestic violence and stalking for healthcare professionals, and went over specifically what can be done from the standpoint of a health professional who may encounter someone who has experienced domestic violence. So that's the very long and winded answer to what we do as an agency.
But it's good information though. Now one of the things that pops into my head from listening to what you're talking about. Now, a lot of people I think seem to think that domestic violence is just physical. And those of us that kind of have experience, not direct experience, but with people that work in this area, understand that it's not just physical violence that could be considered domestic violence. It's mental. It's verbal abuse, mental abuse. I mean, any of that kind of stuff. Does that kind of qualify with what some of the stuff that you guys do is, or do you just concentrate only on like physical abuse?
Oh, no, we take a very broad approach to it. So our definition of domestic violence at CAPA is any pattern of coercive controlling behavior, which can include physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse, and one area that people don't often think about is financial abuse. One of the questions we get asked by the community all the time is, well, why doesn't a person just leave? And the fact of the matter is there are a lot of things that keep a person from leaving. First off, sometimes people are isolated. A lot of times they will move to a community. They don't have the support networks that they may have had elsewhere, may not have access to friends or family. And then also financial abuse. If they don't have access to funds, they feel helpless with what they can actually do if they do attempt to leave. And then there's also just the fact of the matter that right after a person leaves is the most dangerous time for someone in an abusive relationship. And you can see that with some of the homicide statistics that relate to domestic violence. 1 in 3 female murder victims and 1 in 20 male murder victims are killed by their intimate partners. And a lot of those are within a short period after attempting to leave their abusive partners. And actually with that statistic, talking about female and male victims, CAFA also serves anyone who has experienced any type of family abuse. So we serve all genders. We serve men, women, transgender individuals, gender non-binary individuals. If a person has experienced any type of domestic violence or family abuse, we work with them and we don't discriminate. And we feel that's important because if you look at statistics, kind of like how you said domestic violence, a lot of times people only think about the physical. Well, if you look at the campaigns in the 90s, the image of domestic violence was always the woman with the black eye. But looking at statistics, 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men report experiencing domestic violence. It's very high for both women and men. And then it's even higher for transgender and genderqueer individuals. It's between 30 and 50% within their lifetime experience domestic violence. And that's kind of coupled with, higher rates of hate crimes and other type of kind of systemic prejudice that increases the chance of experiencing domestic violence.
So if any of our listeners are listening and they are experiencing this kind of stuff, how do they get started with trying to reach out to your organization? I mean, is there like a process that people need to go to or to start to try to help, to get the help they need?
Mm-hmm. So first off, if a person is in a truly dangerous situation, the first thing to do is call 911. If you are experiencing a crisis situation, that's the first step. However, if it is not